You need two things to build a great app. One, you need to know how to actually build the app and what the user expects. Two, you need to be able to do it using the right tool. But there's also a third thing that you need to do in order to build a great app, and that is you need to focus and optimize yourself on just that app, on just that specific experience, so that you're able to provide the greatest amount of value to the user and isolate yourself from everything else. And so that means everything else that doesn't contribute to the user experience, you need to leave to other tools, to other apps, to other utilities. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you a bunch of tools, utilities, little apps that I use all the time in almost every single project where applicable, that helps me to build an app. And this allows me to focus all my time and energy on the core of the app, on the core user experience. So the first tool that I use all the time in a lot of the apps that I build, a lot of FlutterFlow apps, a lot of other apps, is generatedata.com. And this allows you to generate test data quickly and easily. So for instance, here you have step one, you can choose the types of data that you want. So you can pick name, phone, email, and then you can choose the data format. So let's say you want JSON or you want CSV. And here I have more information. So I have names, I have phones, and I have emails. I have some examples, I have various options. This is going to be random. And I can say, well, I want to generate. And it asks me how many rows I want. I say 100 rows. And it generates, and I can hit download right here. And if I open this up, this is what the data looks like. And this is perfect for those situations where you need to seed a database with some data instead of creating it manually. Another tool that I use is generated.photos, and this is a great tool for generating unique, worry-free model photos. And so you can browse photos and you can decide what kind of photos do you want. So do you want, natural, beautified? You can pick a head pose, gender, age, ethnicity, eye color. Let's say I only want brown. I can do that, and I can generate AI photos of just people with brown eye color. And then I can simply use these images in my app. And this is perfect if you're building an app that's consumer oriented, maybe a dating app, maybe some kind of a marketplace, stuff like that, because you can generate male images separately from female images. You can pick the kind of characteristics you need. And so this is going to help to kind of seed your data and go from there. Another tool I want to show you is called Online Data Generator. Okay, and this is another tool where you can define columns and you can generate data. It's a very, very simple tool. So for instance, we have here a job title, email address, first name, last name. I can add another column and I can call it, let's say column, field category. I can say commercial, and then I can pick drinks. Okay, as an example, I can hit save, and now we have drinks. Okay, and I can say I want 10 rows. What is the format that I want? CSV. I can hit export, and now we have it. So if I open this up, this is the data we have. We have 10 rows, we have the job title, email address, first name, last name, and this is drinks. So it basically generated a column full of various drinks here, which could be useful for an app that you're building. Maybe it has to do with drinks, maybe it's a restaurant type of app. This is gonna be very, very useful. The next set of tools I want to show you are tools that help you when dealing with APIs. And this is going to depend on the NoCode tool that you're using. Some tools support only APIs. Some tools support a very simple database and APIs. And even if a tool supports an ability to create an internal database, the ability to generate a REST APIs in minutes or even seconds is very, very useful, because if I have a tool that supports an internal database and I have an ability to generate a REST APIs in minutes, I'm probably going to be generating a REST API because it's going to let me get started, hit the ground running a lot faster. So with this tool, you can build functional APIs with zero coding. You have resources and permission, and you have all of these connectors here. So all you have to do is click here. It's free. And once you log in into the free account, you have this dashboard here. So you can take a look at their collections which are essentially adapters that will allow you to connect to a specific resource using an API. And so here we have Airtable, we have authentication, you can do DNS, DigitalOcean, you have all of these connectors here, Google Sheets if you want. So you can click on Google Sheets and you can create a Google Sheets API that's going to allow you to access that specific resource. Now, a lot of these tools might have their own API, but it could be easier to go through a tool like this because they're going to simplify the way you access those APIs. For example, I know from experience that Google Sheets has its own API, but it's a little complicated to use. And so in my view, it's a lot easier to go through another tool that's going to uniform and kind of simplify the way you access those data. So if you can just click here, you can create your Google Sheets API, you have your ID, and you can have all your APIs, all your third-party connectors in one place, which is, my view, a really nice way to kind of go about it. The next tool that I use pretty much all the time whenever I need to create an API is called mock API. Okay, and I've probably shown you this tool on some of the videos because I use this tool very, very often. And so all you have to do is go into mockapi.io, and the next thing you want to do is you want to create a project. So I just click on new project, I call it, let's say, project 1. I hit create, and under this project I can create various resources. And so what is a resource? A resource is basically a collection of various items. It's a data that you want to access. So if I have users, a list of users that I want to access, that's going to be a resource. So I should say new resource. I type users, I define it here. Okay, so I have an ID, I have a created ad, and this is using a library called faker.js, which is a JavaScript library that essentially generates random values for that specific type. So if we have name, it's going to generate random names. If we have dates, it's going to create random dates. Avatars, random avatars. But I can also create like a regular field, right? I can say this is a string, and I can say, well, last name or something is a string, and I can say it's a number. It could be just a regular type, or I can say faker.js, and in that case, I can actually pick the type that I want to create randomly. And this is also very, very useful because not only are you creating a bunch of random data that you can seed your app with for testing, for prototyping, but you're also creating an API in one step. So you have that data, but you also have that API that you can access that data, and that is really, really nice. Now, the last tool that I want to show you in this series of creating these random generated data, these fake APIs, is API Mocha. And so you can go to apimocha.com and you can create a mock API for free, no sign up required. And so here we can create like a base URL. And so once you create a resource, it's telling you start by making an API call to an endpoint like James example. And so it even gives you like instructions the way you can do it. Now it says curl here. That is basically a standard way of doing it. Once I executed this request here, it actually is telling me. So I can click edit response, define response data, etc., etc. And all I'm doing is I'm sending requests, okay? And you might be asking yourself, well, how do I work with these APIs? If I'm building an API for my FlutterFlow app or my Bubble app or my Bravo Studio app, how do I actually send data and modify data and know all these things? Well, I'm glad you asked, because the next tool that I'm going to be showing you is the tool that you can use to kind of work with APIs. And this is an awesome tool. It's called Postman, postman.com. They have a very, very generous free plan. All of the tools that I'm talking about today, you can use for free. You don't need to pay because they have very, very generous free plans. And so this allows you to build APIs. It allows you to access APIs. You can import APIs from existing places, from existing tools. It's a very, very rich tool for APIs. And so if I sign in into my account, and once I sign into my account, you can see this is my dashboard and I have these workspaces here. So if I go into my workspace, I have a bunch of APIs and I can import an API. And this is one of the more kind of powerful feature, because if I go into import, I can import from an open API, GraphQL, curl, all of these different files. And believe me, if you're going to be working a lot with APIs, let's say you're working with like a weather API, or let's say you're working with like a crypto rates, exchange rates, or your regular currency exchange rates. The place where you're going to be getting those APIs is going to give you a file which is going to define the endpoints, right? The things that you can do with it, whether it's Rapid API or something else. And then you can come back here and you can import that whole file here, and you're going to have all of those calls here. And so as you can see, I have Airtable, I have Hotels API, I have a Movie API, I have a speech-to-text, WordPress. All of these things were imported from another source. But let's say you want to start new. You can just hit new and you can create an HTTP request, right? So this is my HTTP request. And so I can go back to mock API. I can say, well, I have a new resource. I'm going to say users. I'm going to hit create here. I'm going to say I want 50 users right here. Okay. It went ahead and generated that. And now I can essentially copy this and I can go back to Postman, paste it in here and say users, and I can send it and I can get my response of users. Okay. And so tools like mock API and other similar tools are for putting in data and generating your APIs, whereas a tool like Postman is about working with this API. Now, I personally prefer to use a desktop app instead of Postman, even though I used to use Postman a lot. And I personally use this app called Paw, and they claim they're the most advanced API tool for Mac. This is an amazing app. And so if you are using a Mac, highly recommended, super recommended, because you're going to be dealing with APIs a lot. I guarantee you that. Now, the next few tools that I use all the time deal with data, okay? So they deal with stuff like CSV files, Google Sheets, and things like that. So a really good tool is called Easy CSV. And this tool allows you to work with CSV files, okay? CSV files stand for comma-separated values. And these are the type of files you're going to be using all the time. If you need to get data, you need to import data, you need to import data into an API system for accessing it using an API. You need to import data in order to seed your Firebase Firestore DB, which you're going to use with stuff like FlutterFlow, things like that. And so whenever you think about data, capturing that data, importing that data, even exporting that data, you're probably going to be thinking about in terms of CSV. And so the first thing that you want to do, you want to come into easycsv.io, and you're going to be on this page here, and you want to say view your sheets. And here you can import a page. You can import something. So I can say new import file, and I can drag and drop a CSV file, or I can type in my Google Sheets. So remember, we generated a CSV file using the tools that I showed you in the beginning of the video. And so we can simply drag and drop them here. And so I'm dragging and dropping some of the data here, and it automatically recognizes the columns that we have. And remember, we generated a CSV file with 3 of these columns: name, phone, and email. I'm going to say next, and then I can connect it. Choose where you want to send the data from your spreadsheets, okay? So we can post the data to an API, we can send it to Google Sheets, we can send it to Zapier, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit, Pipedrive, Salesforce, a lot of these interesting things. And so once you have your data, what do you want to do with that data, right? Do you want to create an automation? Do you want to do something else? Do you want to post it to an API? You know, you're working with that data, and typically that data is not going to be static. It's going to be doing something, okay? Another really great tool that I use all the time is called CSV JSON, okay? And CSV JSON is a tool that allows you to work with 2 of the most frequently used formats today when it comes to the kind of apps that we're building, and that is CSV and JSON. And if you're still not 100% sure what is CSV or what is JSON, especially JSON, you definitely need to read up on it, because regardless of which no-code tool you're going to be using, you're going to be dealing with JSON data. So for instance, we have CSV to JSON here, converter, okay? And I can choose the files. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the file that I generated. And this is the data that I generated with one of the previous mentioned tools. And I can hit convert. and it generates a JSON file. This is very, very useful because there's lots and lots of things that you can do with a JSON file, okay? So it auto-detected everything, and you need to understand that these square brackets, that means it's an array. So anything in between this open square bracket and this closed square bracket here is basically a list of elements in that array. Now, obviously, you can have multiple arrays. You can have one array. In this case, we have one array. But inside, we have these curly braces, and these are objects. So we have a list of objects generated from basically a list of rows that we had in the CSV file. And what's nice about it is that we have column names, and it took those column names and it created key value pairs. Okay, we have an object here with key value pairs, right? This is one key value pair, this is another pair, this is another pair. There are three fields here with values, and this could be very, very useful if you have a tool that accepts JSON data. This is extremely, extremely useful because no matter what you're doing, if you're building a tool for the internet, you're going to be using JSON data. Very, very powerful here. So this is an awesome tool. And remember, you can do it the other way. So for instance, I have this JSON data, right? I'm going to say convert. I can just copy to clipboard here. I can go back and I can do JSON to CSV. Okay? Paste it here, hit convert, and now we have a CSV file. And I can also do a tab delimited file, a TSV, or a semicolon. But the most commonly used file is CSV. I've never seen a tab delimited file. It's always going to be CSV. And now you can download it, you can copy the clipboard. This is a super awesome tool that's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of effort so that you can focus on what actually matters. Now, the next couple of tools I want to show you are the automation tools, okay? And these are the tools that allow you to connect different systems, different apps, and create an automation that works across all of these different apps. So let me show you this tool first, and then I'll talk about some of the use cases that you'll find very, very useful when you're building different apps. And so this is Zapier. This is actually one of the more popular tools. Chances are most of you have probably heard about this tool. If not, this is a great tool to kind of familiarize yourself with. So I'm going to log into my account here. And once you're logged in, you see here a dashboard. That's a very, very simple dashboard. You are basically connecting one app to another. Okay, so you can search for, let's say, Google Sheets. I can search for Google Sheets here. And what do I want to do with Google Sheets? If something happens with Google Sheets, I want to do something else. I want to send an email. I want to connect to another app. I want to do something else. I can also do a webhook. So what is a webhook? A webhook is when you are connecting to a tool using an API. So with an app like FlutterFlow, you can create an API that posts to another API. And so once you post something, you can save that data in Google Sheets. So as an example, I have here a webhook, and it says here, add info to a Google Sheet from a new webhook post request. And this is perfect in a situation where you have a FlutterFlow app and you're getting data. Maybe you have a form and the user, completes the form. They fill out the form information. They hit submit, and you have a webhook, and you can point your webhook here. That's going to in turn connect to Google Sheets. So you don't need to worry about Google Sheets. You don't need to worry about, how to the Google Sheets API or how to connect with Google Sheets or any of that. You just need to create an API request. And in this case, it's going to be a post request from your FlutterFlow app. And then you can connect it here, and then you can do whatever you want. So this is going to simplify how you build apps, how you connect your apps data to something else, how you do requests, how you create like a more complex app in an infinite amount of ways, because now you don't have to worry about, what is a Google Sheets API, what is this API, what is that API. That's the purpose of this tool. Another similar tool that I want to show you, and this is a tool that many of you may have not heard about. It's called QuickWork, and you can find it at quickwork.co. And this is a very, very similar tool. And so some of you may prefer Zapier, some of you may prefer this tool. It's always a good idea to kind of know about as many tools as possible. And that way you have options, and options are choices. and choices is a good thing. So if we hit get started, I'm gonna log into my free account right here. And what I can do here is I can create a journey, okay? So we have a trigger here. And in this case, it's the same thing. I can search for Sheets. This is gonna be Google Sheets. I can search for Airtable. Maybe I'm working with an Airtable. I can say I have an Airtable. And what happens? What is the trigger? Well, let's say we have a new record in Airtable, and now it's gonna listen for those new records. And the next thing is we can have a simple action. We can have a business logic. So I can say if, or I can have a simple action, and this could be another app, okay? And so I can pick another app. Lots and lots of apps there, right? I can't easily cover all the apps because there's a ton and ton of apps that you can connect with. And so if you are thinking about building a more complex app, but you're like, wait a second, I need to learn the API, how to interface with this app, how to connect with this app, how to delete records here, how to insert records here. You don't have to worry about it because there are tools that allow you to do it. And so if you are not even interested in building an app that uses these tools, at least you have these tools at your disposal for quick prototyping, for seeing if the app does what you want it to do. And perhaps when the app is launched, you don't need to use these tools, but they're great for at least prototyping or even production. Now, the next couple of tools I want to show you are very, very simple tools, but they allow you to do very, very important tasks. So here we have a tool called Eva, which allows you to verify the email instantly. So identify the spam email while authenticating the users. And they give you unlimited requests. You can have unlimited requests. You can send as many requests as you want, and it's absolutely free, and you don't even need to log in. So for instance, let's say I want to see if test@test.com is a valid email. And this is going to be useful in your apps whenever you need to validate an email. Maybe you have a situation where you want to get the user's email, but you want to make sure it's a legit email. And so if I enter test@test.com, it's basically showing me the request. This is what the request is going to look like. And it's also showing me the response. So success means that we were able to successfully connect to this tool. It's telling us valid syntax is true. So the syntax is correct, but deliverable is false, which means that it's not a real email. It's not going to get delivered. Okay, so it's false. If I type, let's say, james@james.com, which is not my real email, you can see the same thing. Let's see if that is a real email or not. Now, in this case, this is actually a real email. So if you send an email to james@james.com, it's going to get delivered. Deliverable is true. Okay, webmail is false, disposable false, valid syntax is true. This is the domain. So you're getting a lot of data. And so maybe you're building an app and you don't want users with disposable emails, but you want the email to be valid. You want that email to be deliverable. You can easily send an API call to this service right here. And let me show you. You can actually go back into Postman, copy and paste it here and send it, and you're going to have a response. Same thing, right? It's the same thing here. I'm not authenticating. I'm not logging in. It's very, very quickly and easily. I can see what am I dealing with? Is this person legit? Is this a disposable email? Is this a real email? It's a great tool, and there's no limits. There's no need to authenticate. There's no need to create an account. Very, very easy tool. A very similar tool that you can use for building apps is called ipgeolocation.io. And this is a free IP geolocation API, an accurate IP lookup database. And this is going to be very, very useful when you want to figure out where the user is from. Where in the world is the user? Which country are they in? So if I put in this IP address, we have United States, New York, America, New York. We also get the name of the ISP. We have the currency, and we have the country flag. And so not only are you getting the location, right, kind of the rough location of where the user is, you're getting their time zone, which is going to be useful if you're building an app dealing with time zones. You're getting their ISP. You're also getting currency. So if you're building some kind of a travel app, a hotel booking app, an airline booking app, maybe a currency converter, you can display their default currency. And you also have the country flag. And you can easily get free API access. No credit card required. You can simply sign up, and you're going to be able to do very, very quick and easy IP lookups. And this is going to be useful in situations where you want to kind of tailor some of the content for your user. Another really, really simple but very, very useful tool is called QuickChart. And this is quickchart.io. And you can generate chart images with a simple open API. So static image charts for email, reports, and anywhere else. Over 2 billion charts rendered for users around the world, okay? And so all you need to do is send this request and you're gonna get back this. So let's go ahead and try it. I'm gonna go back to Postman, I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna send it. And this is what I get back. I get an image right here in my browser, okay? And this is what I get back. How cool is that? I can also send it from my browser and I get an image. And this is gonna be perfect for those situations where you need to generate a chart on demand. So you can have a FlutterFlow app and the user is doing something and you can display a chart by sending this GET request and getting a chart back. And you can take a look at their documentation here. Very, very simple. You can go to chart gallery to see the kinds of charts that you can generate. Look at all of these charts, right? It's not just a simple pie chart. You can do a stacked line, you can do a rounded corner. And so for any of your chart needs, you can easily use this tool. You can rely on this tool to generate the chart that your application requires, okay? And now I want to close out this video by showing you a couple of very, very useful Chrome extensions that I use over and over again. The first such extension is called Mobile View Switcher. And this allows me to easily switch the view from a desktop view to a mobile view, okay? And so if you are here on a website such as the New York Times, and you want to see how this website looks on mobile, and you can simply click on this tool and you will see a mobile version of this website. And I can easily preview it using a specific device such as iPhone SE, or maybe a Samsung Galaxy, or maybe a Pixel 5, and I can easily see how a specific website looks when viewed on a mobile device. And that's very, very useful if I'm building a web app and I want to make sure that it looks as good on a specific mobile device as it does on a desktop. The next very, very useful tool I want to show you is called Table Capture. This is also a Chrome extension. And the way this tool works is that if you are browsing around and let's say you found a table, right? So here I am on a website called Electric Scooter Database plus Performance Testing. And if I scroll down, what you see is something that resembles a table. Okay, we have different rows here, we have columns, and we have lots of data here in the middle. And let's say I want to import this data and I want to convert it to a CSV file. Or I want to, import this data into Google Sheets, or I want to do something with this data. I want to save it. Well, what's nice about this plugin is I can simply click on it and it automatically detects the table here. Okay, so it understands the table. I can select all. It even previews this data here. See, it says 109 rows, 16 columns, and I can copy table data to the clipboard. I can export table to Google Sheets. I can edit data before exporting. So I can click on this and I can actually edit this data. And this really facilitates an easy way to capture existing data that you may see somewhere on the internet and use that data as a way to seed maybe an app that you're building, or as a way of getting this data and then modifying it and creating some kind of other data that you're going to be using in your applications, in your web app, in your mobile apps, etc., etc. And so this is just a sample of the tools that I use. I actually use a lot more tools, and I have found out that this is really my secret weapon. All of these tools essentially allow me to forget about all the stuff that they do and focus on the core business logic for my app. And that is essentially building an app that helps a specific user or a set of specific users to go from point A to point B. Basically, it helps them to solve a specific problem they're having. And so instead of me actually worrying about how am I gonna, get this data, how am I gonna generate fake data, how am I gonna convert from CSV to JSON, how am I gonna import this data, how am I gonna be doing automations, how am I gonna be, figuring out where the user is geographically, or validating email addresses and all that other stuff that really isn't central to the kind of app that I'm building, to the kind of solution that I'm providing. I can let all of these other tools do the job for me, and that way I can focus specifically on the core value proposition and on the core business logic. And so I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you've gotten value here. And so let me know below if you want to see other tools that I use. I use tons and tons of different tools depending on the specific task at hand. And also, if you're interested in getting more value and taking your no-code knowledge up a notch, going to the next level, getting more content, getting more solutions to the problems you're having, check out my Patreon page in the description below. On that page, you will be able to view and clone all the FlutterFlow apps that I've built. You also get access to Q&As, live streams, and lots of other content that's going to be very, very helpful to your no-code journey. Plus, we also have a great community over there, so I would love to see you there as well if you haven't yet joined. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you real soon.